we need to live by the law of intentionality. And the law of intentionality says growth doesn't just happen. We grow older naturally. We don't grow better unless we are intentional. That's the law of intentionality. I don't know if you noticed it, but every year you have another birthday. You and I are growing older. Can't do anything to stop it. And we are growing older all on our own. It just happens. But we don't grow better unless we are intentional to grow ourselves.
Hello, beautiful people. How are you doing today? I'm so excited that you're joining us for our first YouTube video podcasting. And it's been a journey so far. We've been doing audio podcasting for quite a while now. And now we are going into video podcasting. And on today's episode, I'll be joined with someone that I believe his life has been nothing short but transformational. And is going to be sharing with us insight that is going to help you unlock your potential. Is going to be sharing insight that will help to transform your life. And when I say his journey has been nothing short but transformational, I believe whatever is going to be adding to us today is significantly going to help you live a life of purpose. And joining us today is Bill Goodwin. And Bill Goodwin is a leadership coach and a public speaker with over 30 years of experience in developing team and individuals. He's also a Maxwell executive team member under the leadership of John C. Maxwell, and is also a member of the National Speakers Association. His passion for helping people unlock potential and live lives that truly count led him to establish the Priority Living Consulting Group. And I'm so excited to bring Bill Goodwin to the show today. We're excited to have you. Welcome to the Inside Zone, Bill Goodwin.
Oh, Kenny, thank you. That was a wonderful introduction. I'm humbled, and I've been looking forward to our conversation. So thank you for having me, sir.
You're welcome, Bill. And some couple of days I was just watching some of your YouTube videos, and in some of the public speaking event that you had at some conferences, some of the message you shared there really resonates with me as an individual, and I was highly inspired. And I do hope you get to share some of this message on the Inside Zone today. And I just want to ask you a very simple question. I know you're stepping into a new season with the release of your book, Priority Living. How do you feel stepping into this new season?
Yeah, it feels wonderful. And the good news is, Kenny, the book is out now. So, yes, sir, it is available on Amazon. It's called Priority Living: 7 Pillars to Make Your Life Count. It feels wonderful getting the book in the hands of people and hearing from people that have already read the book and have written reviews or have reached out to me and given me some of their insights and the areas that made a difference for them. So it really is a humbling and a wonderful experience for me to be able to, after spending the time of writing the book, to be able to know that it's making a difference in people's lives.
Absolutely. That's so glad to hear. And a lot of people know you as a coach, as a leadership coach, as a trainer, as a speaker, but not everyone knows your story. So can you just take us back to that life-changing moment, just a sip of it and how it shaped your mission?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the date that was pivotal for me was November 23rd, 1999, coming up on 26 years ago, depending upon when you're listening to this. And that day was a Tuesday, 2 days before Thanksgiving here in the US, and I was driving to, my work. I was actually a youth pastor at a church at the time, and I took our little dog to the family dog to the groomers, which I didn't normally do. I grew up with some allergy and asthma symptoms, so I didn't typically do that, but, I did that day, and I was in the groomers a little bit longer than expected, which then I started to have an asthma attack, shortness of breath. I began to take my rescue inhaler when I got out to my car, wasn't getting any relief, Kenny, and I started to panic. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go, but I did know that I had a nebulizer machine at my house about a mile away, and so I headed that way and, short time after being at my home, I was on my family room floor taking that nebulizer, and, and my, daughter was home from school. She had called the paramedics. They arrived, and I shortly after they arrived, I blacked out. And so the quick version here, but just to let you and the listener know, is that I blacked out, and then I ended up, being taken by ambulance, which I don't remember because I had blacked out. But while I was in the ER, I coded, I died on that day, November 23rd, 1999. Of course, I was resuscitated or I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now, and I'm so grateful for that. That's given me a second chance at life, and so from that time, I was all the more intentional to say, "I want to make my life count." And I know that you don't have to die and be resuscitated to wanna make your life count. We all have a desire to make a difference in this world, but it was all the more prevalent for me because I truly was given a second chance. And so, since that time, over 20 years, I have been intentional, that's kind of a key word for me, intentional about how do I make my life count, and over the course of time, I developed now a framework for priority living that's made up of these 7 pillars, these 7 things that I'm intentional about in order to be sure that at the end of my life, which it will end at some point, just like everyone, I will be able to look back and say, I did the best I could to make my life count and living according to what I've determined as these 7 pillars for priority living.
And, just looking at it, a lot of people go through period of crisis, period of transition, season of challenges. But when they get out of it, their lives do not change. They remain the same. What do you think really helped you to change your life, to transition from who you used to be to who you are right now?
Well, that's, such a wonderful question because definitely and there probably is a listener that's thinking I've had their own wake-up call, a situation, maybe it was a health scare, a car accident, something that has caused them to have this wake-up call about not coasting through life, but being intentional. I truly believe that most people accept their lives, they don't lead their lives, and the only guarantee, Kenny, that tomorrow will be better is if we're growing ourselves today. So so for me, it was definitely a transformational wake-up call that I've been given a second chance, and I don't wanna take for granted the beautiful thing called life, but I want to be intentional about leading my life and not just coasting or taking what comes my way.
Absolutely. I had a similar situation like that some couple of years back. That was 2016. I had a road accident and that was really bad. The car was totaled, and that experience got me to realize that our life is so short and fickle, and what we do with it really matters. And the things that we do think actually matters, they do not matter. Unlike what really matters, like family, growth, purpose, and the things that we are chasing, they don't really matter. So that situation got me to where I am right now, and it's also part of the reason why I am hosting Inside Zone as well. And I just want us to go a bit into like leadership, for example. What is leadership to you? What is leadership? I haven't been in this space for like over 30 years.
Yes. Great question. We have to start with understanding what is leadership. So my mentor, John Maxwell, defines leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And everything rises and falls on leadership. So good leadership, people, companies, countries, they rise. And poor leadership or lack of leadership, low road leadership, then things begin to deteriorate. So leadership is influence, and there's really probably other definitions of it, but I like that one the best because when you influence someone, that just tells us that all of us are leaders because everyone influences someone. So it could be within your family, it could be within your work or within your community, but all of us have the opportunity to be a positive influence, therefore leading other people. And I even just look at the example of go to any park or playground and where you see children playing. And Kenny, you will see a child there that will be influencing or leading the other children. They're saying, "Hey, let's play tag." And everyone else says, "Okay, let's play tag." Or they say, let's go over and play on the swings." And other children follow. That child is leading by his he or she, their influence, and it's not about position, it's not about title, but it's about influence, and that's how I would say I define leadership.
I totally agree with what you just said, Bill. Leadership is influence. We can define it as that. And leadership is not about the title, it's not about the position that you have, but it's about how you can make an impact in your environment, how you can help people become better, how can you positively influence people, how can you positively influence your environment. And by doing that, you are
Mhm.
leading. And it's not about the title, it's not about the position. I strongly believe
That's right.
positional leadership is the lowest form of leadership. And if we have a world whereby 70% of the world population is influencing people, right, positively in the right way, then I truly believe that the world is going to be a better place. And, still talking about leadership, how did you get into this space? How did you transition from being a pastor to being a leadership coach, a leadership speaker?
Well, it's just been a progression that has been very natural for me. When we talk about leadership as influence, looking back even when I was a teenager, I was one of the leaders within my peer group where others were following me. And I recognized that I had influence or leadership skills or abilities at a young age. And then I became a youth pastor. After high school, I got involved in serving in youth ministry. At the time, 19, 20 years old, I was working with junior high students, so maybe 5 or more years younger than me. Eventually became a full-time youth pastor in my 20s for many years, and then had the opportunity that I was not looking for, but became a lead pastor of a church and served in that capacity for 18 years. So, Kenny, I would say it this way, your now leads to your next. And for anyone listening, this is a key principle. Do all that you can to do the best that you can with whatever is in front of you right now, because it often is preparation for what is next. From a faith perspective, you can look at David in the Old Testament. David slaughtered the bear and the lion, and he's now led to his next, where he someday faced the giant called Goliath. It's just a progression of life. Your now leads to your next. When we are faithful with what we've been given, then we are given opportunities for more, or opportunities for increase. So don't despise small beginnings. Start where you are, lead the way you can, and grow your leadership abilities, skills, and keep growing yourself, and your now will lead to your next. Sometimes it's just a matter of time for you.
Wow. Your now leads to your next. That's such a powerful quote about that because I do believe if we are faithful where we are at the moment, all right, we'll be given the capacity to handle bigger things. And that is something that I want every of our listeners to go with today, that your now leads to your next. And, talking about influence, from my own perspective, I see influence as the capacity to inspire someone towards my line of thought without compelling them or without force. And I see influence as something that has like four key principles. I think we have character as one of the principles of influence. We have your connection to people. We have your competence, and we have also your contribution as well. From your own line of thought about influence, what do you think are some of the key traits that would enable you to influence someone in a positive way? Because you can also influence someone negatively,
That's right.
but in a positive way. Yep.
Mhm. Well, there's many ingredients in the recipe of being a quality servant leader. And you named some of them there. I like the list that you said, Kenny. I would add to that, being a good leader that with positive influence starts with listening. Oftentimes when we're young leaders or we're, just getting started, we wanna tell people what to do versus being a good listener. So, good leaders ask great questions. And I think asking questions is an important part that not only makes you a good leader because you're a good listener, but I also think it's important to be one that builds connectivity or connection with the people whom you're leading. People are not looking for someone who's always right or always has all the answers. What they're looking for somebody who's real and authentic and transparent, and that is where we can build bridges with people by building relationships with them. John Maxwell has something called the 5 levels of leadership. I won't get into all 5 of them, but the first level of leadership is a positional level. That means you've been given a position or a title, maybe a supervisor or something, and at that level, people follow you because they have to. You're their boss, you're their supervisor, so they follow you. That's an okay place to start, but that's not where you wanna land. You wanna keep moving up the levels of leadership, and so the next level is a relational level where you start building connectivity with the people you're leading, and a shift happens then, Kenny, when you're building relationship with people you're leading, and now people follow you not because they have to, but instead they start following you because they want to, and that's a huge difference, between those levels of leadership. We go up to the next level of leadership, which is all about productivity, that together we accomplish something better than if it were just, me on my own or you on your own. And so because of productivity and the relationship we have, now we start to really, gain some credibility. We begin to gain some momentum when it comes to, working together as a team and leading the team. So that's an important part. That's step 3 or stage 3. There's a lot more I could say about that. And then real quick, the next level of leadership is is really all about people development. So it's about raising up other leaders. When we want to invest in the people that we're leading, and we want to develop them to become leaders themselves. Now we're at a stage 4, a level 4 of the 5 levels of leadership, because now we're multiplying. We're not doing addition anymore. We're doing multiplication when it comes to developing other leaders. So you can see the progression there, that it's really important as a great leader to be someone who listens, builds connectivity with others, and ultimately is there to develop leaders and continue to give away and empower others with new levels of opportunity within their own leadership.
I really love what you just said right now. That's really inspiring. And if you're listening right now, I need you to understand that you do not need a position to lead people, but you do need to lead with influence. And you said something about relationship and contribution, and it's something that really resonates with me because I believe if we are able to, you know, connect with people on a personal level, we'll be able to get things done faster. And there's this quote that I had, I think it's by President Theodore Roosevelt, and it's people do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it's basically talking about how until people know that you really care about them, then they are willing to buy into your vision and they will buy into whatever ideas that you have and you want to implement. And I think that's the basis for influence, connection, when you're able to connect with people on a personal level. And that way they would go all out for you. And, just still talking about this connection, I struggled with it a bit, and I had to pick up a book that was how to win friends and influence people. That's such a great book, and if you haven't read that book, I strongly believe that is a book any of our listeners should also pick up because relationship matter, communication matter, and it's such a wonderful book. And once you are able to connect with people on a personal level, then things become much more easier. But I just want us to, go back to your book a little bit as well, because we spoke about the 7 pillars of priority living. And the second pillar is growth. And talking about growth, what do you think basically impede people
Mhm.
from growth? What do you think stop people from growing from where they are right now to where they are supposed to be or where they are determined or they see themselves going into?
Sure. I'll just hold up my book. If you're listening, you can't see this, but I'm holding out this wonderful cover of my book called Priority Living: 7 Pillars to Make Your Life Count. By the way, the, foreword to the book is written by Mark Cole, and he is the CEO of Maxwell Leadership. Been running shotgun with John Maxwell for 25 years, so I'm honored that Mark would be willing to write the foreword to my book. So the second pillar is the pillar of growth, and you asked what are some things that, you know, are hindrances or keeping people from growing. I think one thing that's really important to know is that we need to live by the law of intentionality. And the law of intentionality says growth doesn't just happen. We grow older naturally. We don't grow better unless we are intentional. That's the law of intentionality. So, Kenny, I don't know if you noticed it, but every year you have another birthday. So you and I are growing older. We can't do anything to stop it. And we are growing older all on our own. It just happens. But we don't grow better unless we are intentional to grow ourselves. So I'll share a story with you. When I was 16, 17 years of age, I grew up in Arizona, and I have an uncle and an aunt that were entrepreneurs. They lived in Cincinnati, Ohio. My uncle Tom and my aunt Carolyn, and they would come out to Arizona to visit our extended family. And my uncle Tom was just such a wonderful, wonderful, godly business owner, and he took an interest in me. He saw potential in me, and he began to invest in me, and he began to share with me, cassette tapes. This goes back to the 1980s now. Cassette tapes of Zig Ziglar, a motivational speaker. He began to give me books from Zig Ziglar and another author whose name is Og Mandino. These are personal development, self-help type books, and I started to move on a personal growth journey as a teenager. And so those were some very formative times for me of realizing that I'm not gonna get better unless I set goals, unless I better myself. And so some of the things that prevent people from growing are things like not being intentional about it and just thinking it's gonna happen. Well, that will be a pitfall, and it'll prevent someone from growing if they think it's gonna happen all on its own. We have to be intentional. Another pitfall might be, hey, we don't have time. We just think, "I don't have time for that right now. I'm busy, I got other things happening." So that can be a pitfall to keep us from growing. Another one could be, "I don't feel like it." I don't know about you, but there's times maybe I'm not motivated, so I don't feel like growing myself, which means I don't feel like listening to a great podcast, reading a book, getting with a mentor to or coach to pour into my life. You know, there's a going to a conference or a seminar, hopping onto a webinar, different ways that we can grow ourselves. And if someone is not intentional about that and they feel like I don't feel like it, well, then you're probably not going to grow. There are probably other pitfalls that can prevent us from growing. Another one would be, I don't feel like it, but then another one would be, I don't wanna make any mistakes. You know, it's kind of perfectionism. So we wait until we think we're ready to grow versus start growing right away. So I always say that everything worthwhile is uphill. Kenny, did you know that? Everything worthwhile is uphill. And it's not only uphill, it's uphill all the way. Too many of us have uphill hopes and downhill daily habits. So we have to be intentional about growing, realizing that it's an uphill climb every day. Leaders are born daily, not in a day. So we have to keep on climbing and keep on pursuing our own personal growth in order to become better versions of ourselves day by day.
I really love what you just said right now that everything we want is on the other side of here. And if you're listening, that is something we all need to grab as individuals, that everything that we want is on the other side of here, is on the other side. And even if you look at the back of my wall over there, I have the scripture that I read every morning that says that God has not given me the spirit of fear, or a spirit of love, of power, and of a sound mind. And, you know, he said everything worthwhile is uphill. And it's just a really good quote about how whatever we really want to achieve in life, it's gonna take a lot of discomfort to really get it. And I was listening to a CEO talk about, I wish that you suffer, because he said suffering basically builds character out of you, right? And I think you also mentioned something that I believe is really important, that leaders do not grow in a day, but that we all grow daily, right? And I truly believe one of the things that prevent people from growing is imposter syndrome, thinking that you are not qualified enough. And I've struggled with this personally, especially when I was starting this podcast. I was thinking, I do not think I'm qualified enough to talk about leadership or growth to people. But everything we want is just on the other side of here, and everything worthwhile is uphill. And you said something really professional. I beg your pardon. You said something really profound about the law of intentionality. And growth is never going to happen accidentally. Success is never going to come as an accident, but it is through the daily intentions of going in the direction of your vision and your life purpose. And we need to actually ensure that we are physically going on the road that leads to our success. And I think on another episode, that might just be something we'll bring you back to come and talk about to our listeners about the law of intentionality. Because I truly believe you need to be intentional to achieve purpose in life. And so let's just talk about lifestyle a bit. How do you balance your work with your life and family? How do you do that? Do you find it easy?
Yeah. Well, I think the word balance is a tricky word to navigate. We often hear the phrase work-life balance. I don't think that that's a reality. When you think about it, if I have something and I'm trying to balance it, once I balance it, it stays still in order to be balanced. And life and leadership is not about standing still in a place of balance. So I would rephrase that a little bit, and I would say it's more about work-life blend than it is work-life balance. And so we can find ways, whether it's through block scheduling, if you got a morning block, an afternoon block, an evening block, and in your work life, you're gonna be working in the evening. So then either you work in the morning and you take a break in the afternoon, and then you work in the afternoon and then you work in the evening, or you take a break in the morning because you're gonna work in the afternoon all the way through to the evening. So there's ways of block scheduling that makes it work-life blend. That's one way to do it. There's many ways to do it. There's another way to do it where it's, being intentional about how again, I said intentional again, I guess that's the word for our conversation here, Kenny, is finding different ways to set your priorities so that you're able to get the best out of life that isn't just all work, but it also is personal time and focused on other things, exercise, relationship, relaxation, play. There's other things we need in our life, and sometimes the thought of work-life balance gets us stressed out because we don't know how to balance it. In my book, in chapter number 8, I talk about priorities and how you go about setting priorities. I don't think most of us will end up ever with balance, but I do think we can come up with good understanding of blend. And the key to priorities, Kenny, what I found is that it's all about who's who's filling your calendar. Are you filling your calendar first with the things that you've identified that are your priorities? And if so, then other things will come in around that on your calendar versus just let everything fall on the calendar and then you're overwhelmed, you're depleted, you're stressed out, and you use the word I'm trying to get rid of in my vocabulary. It's the B word, busy. So you say, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. Well, we're not productive if we're just busy. So we need to first determine our priorities, put those on our calendar first, then let other things come in around our priorities so that then we can live a purposeful, priority driven life. And I think that'll make all the difference in the world for each person.
And that's so right, because I totally believe that if it's not on my calendar, it's not important to me. And whatever is important to me, it goes into my calendar. So if it's not on your calendar, then I don't think it's important to you. And there's also something that we didn't really, talk about, and it's the ability to say no. Um, Distractions, majorly, most time they come as distant distractions, and
Mhm.
we do not say no to the things we should be saying no to, maybe because we are afraid to say no to the person or
Mhm.
to the position that we've been offered. But I remember that early this year, I was offered a position and I said no to it. Not because the position wasn't good or it wasn't right, but I just believed that it wasn't the right time for me to say yes to it. And I had to decline after so much, introspection and thinking about the whole thing. And that's why we need to be able to say no. And people think saying no is a bad thing, but if it's not in line with your vision and God's purpose for your life, then I strongly believe we should, say no to it. And I think it ties into one of the pillars in your book, which is purpose, right? And sometimes purpose is actually going to streamline your choices for you. And I just want us to talk about some other things, and we're going to do that after the break. And if you're just joining us, you're on the Inside Zone, and I have with me Bill Goodwin, is the author of the Seven Keys to Priority Living, and the book is out there on Amazon. You should go grab a copy and read it, and I'll see you shortly after this short break. If you've been enjoying the conversation so far, I just want to ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is because if you do subscribe, we are able to reach a wider range of audience. And that way, we are able to share this insight to people that don't need them. And you can also share it directly with the people in your cycle, in your network. And by doing that, I believe that you are helping them become better by sharing them the insights and the conversations that is going to enable them to live a life of purpose and foster their growth and leadership. So just share, like, and subscribe to this channel. Also follow us on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Um, Looking forward to more insights with you guys. And let's go back into the conversation with Bill Goodwin on the Inside Zone. Hello, and you're welcome back to the Inside Zone. And if you're just joining us, we've been having a fantastic and amazing conversation so far. And we have on the show today Bill Goodwin, and is a leadership coach, and is a speaker, is a trainer, is a mentor, is a coach. And he has been in this leadership space for over 30 years. And he has been mentored by one of the best in the industry, John C. Maxwell. And so tapping on from the John C. Maxwell energy to Bill Goodwin energy, and we're bringing it down onto the inside. So, and if you're just joining us and you know someone that wants to know how to live a life of intentionality, to prioritize their life, to fulfill the purpose, I need you to share the link to this podcast episode to them. Make sure they're listening in right now. And yeah, welcome back, Bill. So good to have you so far. It's been a tremendous, exciting conversation so far. And I just want us to backtrack a little bit because I remember in the beginning of our conversation, we were talking about the seven pillars of priority living. And I just want you to take us through each of these pillars. What does this pillar mean, right? What do they really mean? How can we understand what this pillar means in such a way that it enables us to live a life of priority and intentionality?
Yeah. Well, that's my book, Priority Living. I'll hold it up here. If you're on camera or you're watching us, I know some are listening. So if you're driving, don't veer off the road. But Priority Living, 7 pillars to make your life count. And the 7 pillars really are the way that I'm choosing to live my life to be intentional so that at the end of my life, I can say, did I make my life count? And so I've been living these pillars for over 20 years and really felt it was time to share it with the world. That's why I'm even here talking with you, Kenny, so that maybe one or more of these pillars could make a difference in the listener's life. And they can say, wow, I need to apply that more intentionally to my life. Most people are coasting or drifting, and I want to help you make your life count. So I'll run through the 7 pillars. The first pillar is purpose. And I believe that purpose is the best of what you have to help others. Purpose is something that we discover. I love the quote from Mark Twain when he said, the two greatest days in a person's life is the day you were born and the day you discover why you were born. And that's all about purpose. And so in that chapter, I give 10 questions that take the reader through their own self evaluation and discovery of discovering their purpose or giving confirmation maybe to the purpose that they already believe is the reason that they're here on this planet. So the first pillar is purpose. There's also a QR code for a purpose factor assessment to be taken online that also gives more clarity to your purpose. The second pillar is the pillar of growth, and we've already talked quite a bit about growth. It's growth mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's really important that we are people that are growing ourselves. You have to know yourself to grow yourself. And so the second pillar is growth. The third pillar is impact. Once we discover our purpose, we're growing ourselves. Now we have something to contribute to the world and to those around us. And now we can make an impact. And so I teach us how you can make an impact with your life in the third pillar. The fourth pillar is rhythm. We all are to live a life of rhythm. I see many people going nowhere fast. We're so busy in our society. And so direction, Kenny, is more important than speed. We want to make sure that we're headed in the right direction for our life and we're able to make an impact, and therefore we're able to live a life of rhythm. We're not supposed to go fifth gear, full throttle every day. There is a pacing to our life that there's even some biblical principles that I share in that chapter, as well as I share my own personal story of when I faced complete burnout in 2010, 2011, and how I went through a time of coming through that burnout and putting rhythm in my life. The next pillar, I call it explore. It's all about this earth is an incredible playground with all of the beauty to see, to experience, adventures to have, people to meet, cultures to experience. And I believe that we're supposed to have fun every day. So finding a way to enjoy life is all about explore. The sixth pillar is the pillar I call it connect. Maya Angelou said, "The quality of your life will be determined by the quality of your relationships." So I believe that connecting with others is a vital part of making your life count. And with that, I have a pyramid of connectivity. So going from being complete strangers with someone, how do we move up the pyramid of greater connectivity, whether that's in business, whether that's in personal connections? And I share about that with the sixth pillar. And then finally, Kenny, we have the seventh pillar, which is the pillar of give. It's all about generosity. Success is what we gain for ourselves, but significance is what we do when we give towards others and to others. So it's giving your time, your talents, your treasure, and living a life of priority living is all about generosity. So those are the 7 pillars. I really do a chapter on each pillar, which really unpacks them. At the end of every chapter, there are discussion questions or reflection questions for the reader to dive into for themselves, to apply it to their own life. And then I have 3 additional chapters. I talk about priorities. How do you set priorities? And I really cover that. There's an exercise to do in that chapter called What's on Your Plate, and it will really help the reader. The the next chapter is all on foundations, that we build our pillars of our life on a foundation. And there's different ways that people build different foundations that they build their life on, whether they realize it or not. For me, Kenny, I'm a person of faith. So I built my pillars on the foundation of faith and on Christian values is how I built my life. But I talk about foundation in that chapter. I also talk about the full extent of my near death experience that I had on November 23rd, 1999. I share the whole encounter in heaven and everything in that chapter. It's a fascinating read. And then the last chapter is all on legacy. How do we leave a legacy? I like to say that inheritance is what you leave to someone, but in excuse me, inheritance is what you leave to someone, yes, but legacy is what you leave in someone. And so how do you leave a legacy? So that's the 10 chapters of the book called Priority Living, 7 pillars to make your life count. And I believe that there's one or more of those pillars that each person can really benefit from and making their life count by being intentional about these pillars.
Thank you so much, Bill, for talking to us about the 7 pillars for priority living. And I like the way you spoke about all of the pillars. And just looking at it from hindsight, the first pillar was purpose, and the last pillar was give. And I strongly believe that we were created for a purpose so that we can give it out to people. I think it was John Maxwell that said, "Success is when I add value to myself, but when we begin to add value to other people, that is when we enter significance." And I truly believe that the whole essence of developing your potential and unlocking your gift, it's so that you can add value to people, so that we can basically make a positive impact in the society where we find ourselves right now. And I think Dr. Miles Monroe basically had a quote that says, "The greatest tragedy in life is not death, but it's a life without purpose. It's a life without purpose." And I strongly believe that anyone listening to us right now would need to understand that the greatest tragedy is not dying, but is living a life where you are not making a difference, where you are not making an impact. And there's something I also want us to talk about is we didn't really go deep into it. And you mentioned how you were a pastor and now you are a leadership coach and you're a public speaker. And I know a lot of people are going through this transition now
Yes.
crisis or challenges whereby they feel led to start something, but because of the thought of what people are going to say, they do not, forge ahead in doing this. And I strongly believe that as believers, we've been meant to and called to occupy different spaces and
Mhm.
for Christ. And one of the
Yeah.
spaces, the leadership coaching space, that I strongly believe we need a lot of believers in this space.
Right.
And because we are both men of faith, we've seen how people think you are, not being truthful to your faith when you're transitioning to another space to use the gift that God has placed upon your life, right? So for people that are listening right now, I just wanted to, get the juice out of the story that how did you make that transition? I think we should go back into that story. How did you make that transition?
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't mind, I'll answer that, but if you don't mind, I have a quote in my book on the chapter on purpose from Dr. Miles Monroe, and I wanna read it. Yeah. Miles Monroe wrote, "Purpose gives your life meaning and direction. It helps you make decisions and to choose a path of in life. Purpose is not something you find, it's something you discover. It is a journey of self-discovery and personal growth." And that's a quote from the great Dr. Miles Monroe. So you asked how I transitioned. Yeah, so I've been involved as you mentioned in my bio for over 30 years. I've been developing leaders. Well, while I was a pastor, and I believe many people in ministry are developing leaders, and I've been passionate about raising up leaders, seeing potential in people, and helping develop them in their calling, in some leadership capacity. Many times I would raise up young leaders in my church and I would launch them out. I even use that word. I'm launching you into your next calling, to your next season of life. And there were people in my church when I was pastoring that would say, "Pastor, you're giving away all the good people. Why do you keep sending these people out of the church?" And I said, "Because they're not supposed to stay here. They're here to pour into us while they're here, and we're here to pour into them so that they ultimately can fly and go do what God's called them to do. And they've been trained and equipped while they've been here." So that's been part of my apostolic call, is to develop leaders for decades. And so I came to a point, 2018, I was introduced personally to spend a day with John Maxwell, and that was a life-changing day for me as well, because I realized there's more in me. John says, "Leaders see more and see before." And so I was seeing so much more of pouring into people in the marketplace and in churches as well as nonprofits, and I really felt like there will be a time coming in the future that I most likely will transition out of serving primarily in the local church and being, available to the greater, larger, business community and marketplace. And so that time came in March of 2021 is when I joined the Maxwell Leadership Team as a certified coach, and I highly recommend it. If you're listening and you're like, I want to grow in my leadership, I want to encourage you, use my name, but reach out to maxwellleadership.com and find out more how you can become a certified speaker, coach, trainer. It's not just John Maxwell, there's an incredible faculty of leaders that will mentor you in the process. So I joined Maxwell Leadership, and a year and a half later, as I had been also started my LLC, which is called Priority Living Consulting Group, I realized that I had so much opportunity outside of the church that it was time for me to transition and do priority living full time. I do serve a ministry right now as well, which is a wonderful thing. I can pour into ministry leaders as well as the business people that I connect with. So that transition came about very naturally, as we talked about earlier. Remember, Kenny, I said your now leads to your next, and that's really what happened for me, and it was time for my now to become my next and, to move into my next, but I was being equipped for what I'm doing today, all the years of serving in the local church.
Mm, absolutely. Yep. We get equipped in the local church to go out in the marketplace to basically allow people to fulfill their purpose and get better by living out and releasing their potentials. And
Yes.
so glad that you're doing that. And I'm also glad I'm also doing that as well. And yeah. So as we begin to round up, from the seven pillars, looking at it from your own point of view, which one of them would you say has been like the most difficult for you to live out?
Mm. Well, first and foremost, you never arrive. These pillars are not like the 7 pillars to success. If you do this one, this one, this one, you'll be wealthy and healthy and all those things. No, these are just something that are like things that I'm intentional about, and I wanna encourage those that read the book to realize that this is something that will help give direction in your life. Um, so you never arrive with any of them. I think there's different times in throughout the over 20 years that I've been more, uh, effective in living one over the other, and there's times where I've lacked and I needed to come back around. Like, there was definitely a time that I was not living rhythm, and there's times where I get out of rhythm, and I'm too filled up with my calendar, and I'm not at the right pace of life. So there's seasons that come and go with that. But I also would say that it's just about doing the best you can do. I love this little poem. It says, "Good, better, best, never let it rest. Make your good your better, and your better your best." So if we do that every day, we're mindful of doing the best we can today, and then tomorrow doing a little bit better. Don't rest, don't slow down. But when we make our good our better, then our better will become our best. And so that's been for me how I continue to look at these pillars. And definitely I've lacked with different ones at any different time, but then I also can can really thrive in them as well. And so, yeah, I think that's how I would answer that great question of yours.
Thank you so much, Bill. And everything you said can actually be summarized into growth is not a perfectly linear journey. Because I strongly believe that there'll be times that you'll be out of rhythm, and there'll be times that you'll be in rhythm with what you're supposed to be doing. Well, I really love the fact that you never allowed your times of being out of rhythm to stop you. You never gave up on it. You never stopped going in the direction of what you believe should lead you into where you're supposed to be, right? And I think for everyone listening right now, I truly believe that we all can live a prioritized life, but we all first of all need to know what is priority to us. And as we begin to round up, Bill, what do you say to anyone listening out there? Do you have any form of advice that you can give listeners, or even a quote that would help them get past this phase of being busy and not being productive? How they will get past this phase of not living a life of intentionality.
Mhm. Well, I think it's really on my heart to say that we all need encouragement. And I love speaking of a quote, I love the quote from Truett Cathy. He's the founder of Chick-fil-A, Christian chicken. I love Chick-fil-A. Well, I don't know why I always crave it on Sundays when I can't have it. But anyway, Truett Cathy once said, "Who needs encouragement?" And then he answered his own question. He said, "Everyone who's breathing." Boy, isn't that the truth? So, I wanna encourage you, Kenny, I wanna encourage the person listening today that's joined us in this conversation. Maybe you're on the treadmill or you're driving in your car or you're listening at home, but I wanna encourage you today, and that you are valuable, that you are important, that you matter, that you can make the rest of your life the best of your life. It doesn't matter where you've been, really doesn't. You can use past experiences to make the difference in the life of somebody else. I love listening to Ed Milet, his podcast where he says, "You're most qualified to help the person you once were." Those are great quotes, about encouragement and about living your purpose, about lifting up others. We are all elevator people. We are either taking people up or we're bringing people down. So go ahead and be an elevator person today that encourages other people, that lifts others up, because that is a joy-filled way not only to live your own life, but to add value to the people that you come in contact with. And so I try to do that every day, and I wanna encourage you to consider doing it too.
Absolutely. Make it a purpose to make someone else's life better. And thank you so much, Bill. It's been fantastic having you on the Inside Zone. And you've practically laid out the foundation of how people can live a life of intentionality. And thank you so much. We're so glad to have you. And we're looking forward to bringing you back on the show very soon. So, yeah, watch out for that invite.
I would love to come back, Kenny. Thank you for having me. I love the name Insight Zone, and I love the privilege that I've had to spend this time with you and the person on the other end listening, and I would love to come back someday. I met a new friend, and I always like connecting with new friends like you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And for our dear listeners listening right now, we had Bill Goodwin on the show. And if you haven't heard, newsflash, his book is out there on Amazon. Just go to Amazon and search out Bill Goodwin, Seven Pillars to Priority Living, and you can grab the book. And I believe that with what he has shared with us today on the Inside Zone, you're definitely going to start working out in purpose. He has already laid the foundation on how you can lead a life of intentionality in such a way that you can make a contribution and give generously to people. And so, thank you so much, Bill, for coming on the show. We are so great to have you with us.
Kenny, if I could just add one thing, I wanna give a free chapter download to the listener. So if you go to my website, you can get a free chapter PDF download. So you go to PriorityLivingBook.com. You can also go to PriorityLivingCG.com. That's my business website. And either one of those links will take you. You'll see there where you can download a free chapter of the book. And I want to encourage you to go ahead and do that.
And we have come to a wrap. This is the end of the episode with Bill Goodwin, and this is our first video podcast. And if you're listening right now, I would love you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, share this episode with your friends, with your families, with your foes as well. And just ensure that you listen to it and take an action plan based off what you have heard today. And we are committed to helping you bring insight that is going to foster leadership and growth in your life. And you can also look for the Inside Zone with Kenny Adeleke on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're also on other podcast streaming platforms as well. And until next time, keep living and leading a life of intentionality and purpose. See you in the next episode. Bye.